So for 69?
So in 69 we had a deal because Jochen was driving for Lotus. Then Lotus, he must have talked to Chapman and told him that we should be running the Lotus Formula 2 cars. They should be run by Winklelmann Racing, but they could be owned by Lotus. So they obviously agreed to that because they didn't want to run them themselves anymore.
That'd be a 69?
That was Lotus 59.
59, sorry.
Yeah, which was the space frame.
Yeah. Which
was designed by a guy called Baldwin, but it was a Ralph Baldwin and a Mike Baldwin.
Ralph Bellamy?
No,
that's later on, isn't it?
No. Anyway, it was, and of course, once again, we had to go to Lotus to build the cars. They were behind with them.
Yeah, as usual.
And so we get up to Lotus, and they were a fair way on, but we had a look, and they'd been actually testing with a car in the winter, and with John Miles. So we get up there and we have a look at it, and there were things obviously because we knew the engine and we knew space frames and we knew the car a little bit. We knew the engine mounts were no good.
Right.
And we knew the brakes weren't actually any good. They weren't big enough either. And all we got was, negative. Oh, okay, you blokes just come to criticise, you can leave. So off we go. And we have to go back a bit, later. And then you have to do the classic, have to work all night before you get to Thruxton. So we work all night. We leave there at 4 o'clock in the morning with the cars, still with the small brakes, still with engine mounts, so we weren't happy with them. But, basically the car was all right. It was fairly large, compared to the Brabhams, but we get to Thruxton just for testing only, and so Jochen goes out in it, and he's I think it's a couple of seconds inside the lap record there, sort of instantly.
Straight off,
no trouble. And of course, our other driver was Graham Hill.
Yeah.
And of course with Graham, he has to have this and he has to have that. And it was at Thruxton after, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here, but so so Jochen goes out and says, the brakes, he said, are useless, he said they're completely fading. He said the fluid's going.
Right.
Boiling with fluid. But he said, that's okay, it doesn't matter. He said, you can leave it. He said, you only use the brakes once at Thruxton, you see. So leave it, he said, they can recover okay. But so that's, I think, on a Wednesday. So luckily we had the time to go back to Slough and get large calipers from AP, which was a good move because we thought at least that's about a heat sink to take some temperature away.
Yeah.
And the engine mounts by then were okay still, but we still weren't excited about them. So then we get to Thruxton for practice, when that would be Friday or Saturday, usually an Easter weekend.
Yeah.
Isn't it? And I always remember actually Frank Williams coming up to me and he said, Pete, what's this about this time that Jochen did? He said, that's a load of bull, isn't it? I said, no, he did that. No, he said, you just having a song. So I said, no, he did it. And Frank wouldn't believe it. Frank would not believe it. So I said, okay. And then it was Piers Courage. He come along when we were unloading up on the transport, and he said, it looks like a Formula 5000 car. So big. Remember Jackie Stewart saying, don't knock it yet. He said, don't knock it yet.
Yeah.
So we get out there, and in practice it's okay. Everything's okay. We got the brakes that they work once fine, and they're reasonable. And he gets on pole there for the race, and the race was in 2 heats. So Stuart was in the Matra there, which was it was a pretty good car. So in the first race, Jochen gets a puncture on the rear, and it was our first effort with with a centre lock wheel, and it wasn't hammers, it was a nut. And you think they'd supplied us with some tools for undoing the thing wouldn't undo.
Oh.
It was totally useless. So he I don't know if we changed it in the end, but in the second race he asked us up in the back of the grid.
Right.
Which he did. And he won again. So, he had to pass Stuart on the way
and everyone
on the way. And that would be typical of Jochen, because he knew the car could do it. He'd be quite happy, and he charged on. Of course, that actually silenced all the critics then about the size of the car. And, obviously Frank thought, they weren't lying after all.
That's right.
Actually about
They're
this.
telling the truth.
And I think that was the last time I spoke to Paul Hawkins, because he must have been killed that year.
All right, yeah.
Or not my after, because he came after and he said, Jochen is just awesome. He said, on that circuit and things like this. And it was always nice when a driver like that actually came up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'd sort of met Paul when I probably Crystal Palace in about 1965 or 66, and he was a nice Aussie, wasn't he?
Yes, of course.
He was another guy that was, and he'd talk to you. So we moved on from there with the Lotus. So we went to Nürburgring, and the Nürburgring people were very anti-Lotus.
Right.
I think because of Clark's accident,
Oh, right.
Nobody ever sort of knew, and whether they tried to blame the circuit or all this sort of thing went on. And so at the Nürburgring, both cars broke front wishbones.
Right.
And the rear wheels came loose, which we didn't know about the rear wheels until we get up to scrutineering, or they wheeled the cars up there after the race, and I was just having a look at the wheel nuts and it was loose, so I just took it up with my hand.
Yeah.
And it just went. Then one of the Germans came along afterwards, and he accused me of tightening up the wheel nuts again, because obviously they'd noticed them loose. I said, no, I didn't tighten them. This went on, but we had a lot of hassle there. So, we get back to England, and I modified the wishbones, and it wasn't the nicest modification you've seen, but it lasted us all season. Now, actually, the cars were owned by Lotus. They should have done something, but they were too busy to do
absolutely.
things.
Yeah.
So this went on, and I believe at the end of the season, when they got the cars back, according to Jochen Chapman said, why did he do it like that? That wasn't the way to do it. But the last of the season, I didn't care how I did it.
That's right, and it worked.
Yeah,
It didn't break.
Just as long as we could continue races.
Yeah.
And we still had problems with the brakes all season. I wanted some ventilated, discs, but of course, we couldn't get them and put them on. The cars were Lotuses, and they'd never come up with any ventilated, discs. And they did have them on some cars they had. Well, I think on the Lotus 47 they raced had them on.
Yeah.
So all those things, that technology was available, and they never come up with them. So in the last race, I remember Jochen was having trouble with the brakes. His last race with me was at Vallelung, and he just stuffed it in the home cover.
Right.
So whether it was on purpose or whether he wanted to catch an aeroplane home or not.
That's an earlier flight.
But it was always to do with brakes. And
right.
Actually, with hindsight, I probably know a little bit more about brakes than I did now. Now than I did then. But we should never have gone on for a season with them like that. I think we'd
Try to have done something yourself with them.
improved a lot. In that season also, we gave Ronnie Peterson a drive at Albi. I think was the first time Ronnie was in the car. I think it was probably the only time, but we had other drivers. John Morals was in the car.
Yeah.
We also had the Lotus for a while that belonged to Max Mosley. Now, whether we hired it from Max or actually what happened, I don't know. But
probably did some sort of deal.
Yeah, I think so. Actually, because Max he'd turned up with his car at Nürburgring, and this is something else which is also an amazing coincidence. Or he was out there on the circuit, and he had an enormous crash off the circuit. The one that never had all the barriers and things.
No, of course.
And he was lucky. He sort of walked out of it okay. But a marshal actually walked up at the accident and says, "Does this come off your car?" And it was a K-nut that hadn't been screwed on, because if they'd been screwed on all the way, there's you can see the locking actually section of them.
Yeah.
And so they find out this has come off the bottom of the front upright where it goes through the wishbone.
Okay.
So he picked his car up from the factory and loaded it up, and off they'd gone. And this nut had only been put on there think tight.
Whoops.
And so after a big hassle with Lotus, I believe they rebuilt the car, or they paid for some of it or something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether Max raced it again after that, but I know
That would have been quite late for Max, actually, wouldn't it? 69.
Yeah, but we used it after. I've actually got a good photograph somewhere around. I think it's reasonably well-known photograph of Max and I walking beside the car at Nürburgring, and Peter Briggs is actually pushing the car, so
right.
it's quite a good one. But we knew Max, of course, from down there.
Yeah.
And so I knew Max before March, of course. And then Robin Hurd was around also. I knew Robin in 69 also. Maybe a bit earlier, because there was talk of Roy Winklelmann actually building his own Formula One car. So this was also on the cards.
Right.
Probably in 68 sometime, I think. And so Robin was
around anyway. Was he working at McLaren or something?
He was at McLaren's then, yeah. And I'd sort of been round to Robin's house, and another mechanic and I, and we'd actually talked about the bits and pieces that we'd like in the car.
Right.
Which was unusual, in those days they'd ask you what you thought was.
Yeah. Can you imagine happening today?
These days, it's just totally useless these days. Okay, we'll have to hop back here a little bit to Thruxton with the incident that I had with Graham Hill. It was after practice there, and the cars were okay, and so Graham came up to me and said, he said, "Can I have a look at your job list?" He said, "I want to write some things in." And I said, "Graham, I don't have a job list. If it's important, I'll remember it. If it isn't important, forget it anyway. It wasn't worth thinking about." He said, "Far be it from me to tell you how to do your job," he said, "but I think a job list is a good idea." And actually, luckily, I sort of had enough clout, I suppose, to get away with it. I said, "Graham, I think it's a bad idea." And that was the end of that. We never ever had a job list. I thought, because I think I was right. If it's important, you have to do it.
Of course. Yeah.
If it isn't important, like some little, some little niggly thing.
Yeah.
It was the Thruxton also
Because Graham did like to fiddle, didn't he?
Yeah, where another mechanic looked after the car for Graham, and in the practice, actually, Graham said to him, he said, he said, stiffen the rear anti-roll bar up, he said, 1/8 of an inch. And so that you just have to loosen off an Allen key, and so he goes around the back and loosens off and knocks it up to what he thinks it's 1/8. You can see the marks, and you can probably judge within sort of 10th out. And he comes back in and says, okay, all done. And Graham says, have you done that anti-roll bar? I said, yeah. And he said, did you measure it? And he said, no, just eyeballed it. And Graham said, when I say 1/8 of an inch, I mean 1/8 measured. So that is probably it ties in with the story that when he left BRMs, they presented him with a gold Allen key for the anti-roll bar adjustment. They've probably worn out all their other keys,
Exactly.
just getting you within half a thou. And that was, I thought that was was a good one. But also the job list, and I never, all the time I was in Formula 2, but I never had a job list. No.
So how was the 69 season with the Lotuses?
Reasonably good. We had wins, and if the car was running at the end, then Jochen could win by then. Because by then Alan Rees wasn't driving anymore, so he was just manager, and it was only Graham and Jochen, and anybody else that they could fit in when either Graham or Jochen weren't available.
Yeah. So that was the end of 69.
End of 69.
And what happened to the team at that point? Did it finish then?
Yes, the cars actually went back to Lotus, and then Jochen ran his own Formula 2 team with the new Lotuses, the 69s.
Yes.
From then on.
Right.
Until his death anyway. So they went back to the factory, and the cars were rebuilt into monocoques.
Right.
From space frames.
Right.
And I presume all the space frames were probably scrapped, or I don't know what happened to them, but there was a monocoque centre section, but I was lucky not to be involved in any of that. Anyway, by then, before the end of the season, I'd actually been approached by March and by Jochen because
they were running. They've had that single chassis, didn't they? Was it Formula 3?
Yeah.
In 69.
Yes, for Ronnie.
With
Pierce.
Ronnie, yeah.
And
they're obviously looking to go on to better things anyway.
Yes, and James Hunt drove the car as well. And so by the end of the season, I wasn't unemployed. I could have found a job anyway, but I was also approached by Jochen and Robin Hurd because they were talking about doing their own Formula 1 car. Jochen was talking about a Formula 1 car of his own.
Was he? Right.
And
even though he was with Lotus?
Yes.
Right.
And I said, I'd be interested, obviously, because you knew Jochen would be giving it everything.
Yeah.
And with Robin, I sort of knew Robin anyway, and I sort of knew a little bit about his history, and I got on well with him. But that obviously came to nothing then. I'm reasonably certain that was at the end of 69. But not 100% certain, but it was around that time.
Yeah.
So then then the March thing actually started up, or they were getting people together.
Yeah.
And I knew all the people involved in the company. So
you got in quite early though, didn't you?
Yes. So it was a natural sort of progression to move from there. But at the end of that year, when they were running the March with James Hunt, I think it was I shared a house in Maidenhead with Howden Ganley.
Okay.
And so Howden was racing, also in the Formula 3 car. So I went to Brands Hatch with him. And of course we come up against the March anyway.
Yeah.
So Howden had a brilliant race there. I forget what happened in the first heat, but in the second heat he was way back and he started and he did the only 100-mile-an-hour lap in the old F3 cars that's never been done there. I think he still holds that.
Right.
But we had to cheat a little bit because if he never gained anything on a lap, I'd put him as gaining on the board. So it'd be half a second up or whatever. Yeah. And so by doing that, I think we sort of kept him motivated, even though he's way back. And I remember talking to Tim Schenken afterwards, who was also racing, and of course we knew Tim very well. He said he come past me. He said there's no way I could keep up with him. So that was all said very good. But also the Maidenhead thing was very good in those days because Ronnie Peterson lived there, Tim Schenken lived there, and of course Howden lived there, and then Rainer Vassell would come from Sweden, and so we'd all go out for meals.
Yeah, right.
In Damalo or Henley or, or to Windsor, and so that was all nice. So we were in, and I think I met Ronnie Peterson before that at Madrid at Urama, so that was something else. He couldn't speak English in those days.
Really?
But I met him through Rainer Vassell, never known that I'd look after a car for Ronnie someday, but it sort of all went from that. So the March thing happened, and it was good that it happened, in that it was a new team starting up with a lot of opposition from
the establishment.
The establishment there, the establishment had been around a long while, and there were there's some offshoots of this also that that people don't really know about, but I'll go into that a bit later. We started off and all very gung-ho because we were up against the establishment, which is always good if you got some opposition sort of apart from race cars. It is always it makes it interesting, and everybody that actually worked for March were always it was a laugh. It was like we were up against all these people, and it's the same in a way that happened to Hesketh. In that you were up against it all, and nobody believes it'll happen, and an empty office and a telephone was the thing, and yet in around all this, everybody was working so hard to get it all to happen. The car was designed, but we still had this opposition to it all sort of all the way, which that makes it good.
So your attitude was sort of real shallow.
Yeah. We're all there saying, this will work and that'll work, and you also had a lot of input. Even as a mechanic, they'd say, we want this, okay, we'll make this, and then see what you like it, and that sort of thing would happen. Yeah. But it all went on, all went along, very well, and then when the car appears, in spite of everything, it wasn't a disastrous car.
No, it wasn't.
We had some problems because the driver was Chris Amon. Now I'd known Chris from way back in New Zealand, and oddly enough, one of my first meetings with him, I was in the South Island and we were driving around. I don't know why I was driving around, and Chris came along, and I stopped and to talk to him, and he said, "Oh, can you take me back to the hotel?" I said, yeah, no problem. I said, "Where have you been?" He said, "I've been to pictures." And I couldn't believe that a race driver would not be working on his car or be interested, to know what was happening in his car in the garage, which was in the town anyway, which was in, within walking distance. And I've always actually thought about that, and I thought, why wasn't Chris interested in, what the boys were doing to the car? We're talking way back when the drivers in like Brabham used to work on his own car.
Yeah,
he used to work on his own car up, well into the 60s. You'd see Brabham with the injection equipment under his arm, going back to the hotel at Poe to do some fettling on it at night, things like that. And with Chris, he never did that, and so when he gets to March, he wanted to drive the car, but there wasn't a lot of input from Chris. I didn't think I liked him. I still like the guy as a driver, and he was quick as a driver. He was excellent when he's just with mechanics. Brilliant. He'd go out for a meal. Chris would be wonderful. He'd even pay, and he was great. As soon as management turned up, it was like disaster.
Right.
He never seemed to get on with management, and yet he had managers of his own that you wouldn't. That I wouldn't get on with. I get on with anybody.
Yeah.
But he was just in that situation, and yet there were some races. Actually, Canada was one of them. I said, "Look, we've got some problems on the rear end. Keep it off the curbs." Yeah, fine. And he comes in after the race. I think we finished in the points there, and he said, "I never went on the curbs once," and I believed him. He was skillful as a driver, and so I really liked him because of that. But if something went wrong, he could be bad all weekend. He'd like if the management turned up and said something, then Chris would be.
That was the end of it.
The end of it, yeah. He would not pick it up from that, or he didn't appear to pick it up from that. But the problems might have been genuine. Like at Zandvoort, he does the clutch on the line, and so he drives all the way around on a lap, revving the engine high. Now I've had other drivers that have done the clutch on the line, but they lift off and they'll cruise around for a lap, and the clutch will come back again. It's obviously been red hot and will work.
Yeah.
And I've had drivers who would do that, but Chris wouldn't. See, it'd be all over immediately. The clutch wasn't working. That'd be the end of it.
It's funny, isn't it?
And he sort of drives into the pits at Zandvoort, and I got in the car. Nothing, like the thing wouldn't even idle the way, so the clutch was just totally gone.
Yeah.
And yet it had enough to drive around the circuit, but like I could hear him coming around the loop, and he's revving it, revving up and down revs. It's not just as hard as up and down. So those kind of things, but there was a lot of it. Was enjoyable.
Yeah.
In South Africa, we had the car out there fairly early for some testing, and so we wanted to run it out of petrol or something like that. So, so Robin and I'd say, so I'll do some laps, and so you get out and you drive around and you squirt it up the hill and things like that. But I didn't go very quick. But up in a straight line uphill, I'm really brave. So I was saying to Chris, I said, "God, I don't have to go up that hill, that piece in the back there, from that corner out there. Don't accelerate up there." He said, "No, I don't think so." I said, "Yeah." He said, "What gear are you in?" I said, "I'm in second there." He said, "Oh, I'm in third up there." He said, he put it flat in third.
Exactly.
I was just getting into second. So all those sort of things were
exactly.
They were a bit of a laugh. But then I get bored very easy with that, so I'd come and hand over to Rob, and then he'd keep it going till it ran out of petrol. So, which isn't a fair test, but it was all good fun anyway.
So were you involved with Ronnie's car in that season, which was...
No, that was the
antique automobiles thing, wasn't it?
Antique automobiles thing, yeah.
So you just supplied the car and they got on with it?
Yeah. We turned up at Monaco. We had two cars there for Chris. The one was the lightweight monocoque. Now, my car was original old one. So in the first day's practice, Chris crashed it into the barriers coming down the hill. So another mechanic and I get out there, and it's on 3 wheels. He's taken the front wheel off, but it's on 3 wheels. So we lift the wheel over, take the wheel off and put everything up on the front, and it stays on the 3 wheels. I want to go back to the pits and this.
Yeah.
You just took it off. So, but only came down to the old railway station area, and they make me park it. But I could have got back to the pits okay, because all the brakes were working. Everything was okay, and the engine was you could start the engine up on those days with a button and it had a battery on board.
That's right.
And we park it, and then we have to go back to the pits, and we have to get a wishbone, and we rebuild it while the Formula 3 race is on.
Yeah.
But there's a ding in the monocoque. So when we get back to the garage again, they said, "Oh, he'll have to practice the lightweight." Okay, so we get the lightweight, we prepare that, and the next thing is other engine's better. Engine gearbox in the first car, so I've got to change that. So then after that practice, he said, this lightweight isn't as good as the old chassis. So then I've got to repair the old chassis, which means getting the transit jack out of the transit and jacking it all out, putting some extra bits of metal in there. So we get that, and then we have to take the engine off. And this is, I know it was 2 or 3 nights in a row. I'm sort of walking back to the hotel at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Lucky it was a walk.
Yes, of course.
But all those sort of things used to be sort of almost epic in a way, and by the time the weekend was over,
you're shattered.
You're shattered.
Yeah. And
you never do like Monaco anyway.
No, exactly.
Not from a mechanic's point of view.
Right.
I've never liked it because just about every time I was there, it was hard work. There was always something happening. Yeah. So
so who are your 2 drivers for 1970?
Chris Amon and the other one was Joe Sifford.
Oh, of course it was. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Joe was good. He hit the odd Armco at Nürburgring. He comes back and says, "Oh, I was heading for the Armco." He said, "I just remember just in time to take my hands off the steering wheel." He said, "Otherwise I would have broken my thumb." So that wasn't much consolation to us.
We have a crumpled car to bring back.
Have to rebuild it, yeah. But he was a nice guy, Joe. He was he was extremely nice. Occasionally you'd have to pick him up from the airport and things like that, from Heathrow, and take him up to the factory, and that was always good, because that was good in a way. You could have a talk with him, and I'd sort of met him sort of earlier anyway, from his early days with Rob Walker and things like that.
Yeah, of course.
So you knew the guy a little bit. It was very sad when he was killed in the BRM, but then that was a hazard in those days.
That's what it was like, wasn't it?
Yeah,
through the sort of early to mid 70s for a start.
Yeah.
Even before that.
Yeah.
By a mile.
There were a lot of deaths that
weren't necessary.
Yeah, these days, they'd be totally unacceptable. But in those days, he's a race driver. There's accidents.
Part of the job.
Yeah. He gets £10,000 a race, probably not much at all, then he has to take some risks these days.
Yeah.
It's so much, they get so much more money with a lot less. Yeah.
Absolutely, that's right. So in the 71, you had the 711.
The 711,
The new design.
Yeah.
So you had Ronnie that season, and who else was it?
Oh.
Was it Alex Solaroy?
Alex.
Was it 71?
Solaroy, Nanny Galley.
Oh, yes.
And the Alpha engine.
Okay.
The Alpha V8. We started off. I don't know what the deal with Alpha was, but we had this Alfa Romeo V8 engine. And we also had the Ford engine, but because of politics, we very rarely turned up at a race meeting with the Ford engine to go. And in sort of, oddly enough, we went to Zandvoort with the Alpha engine. We had problems in practice with the Alpha. So we then got to run the car with Ford engine.
Yeah.
So there's actually two mechanics, and we're looking after, 1.5 cars virtually.
Yeah.
Because there's an Alpha mechanic, but he's only the engine man. So this went on for a lot of the season. We'd practice the Alpha engine and run with the Ford, and almost always with the Ford engine, we could end up in the points.
Yeah.
It was extremely good. The last race we had with the Alpha engine was at Paul Ricard.
Right.
And so Ronnie goes out and he practices with the car, and after practice he comes to me and says, I don't want to race the car. I won't race the car. I'm not going to race. So I said, come and sit with me in your Mercedes, Ronnie. So we go and we sit in his Mercedes. And I talked to him for probably an hour. I said, look, Ronnie, if you do this one race with this engine, I said, then they will know that it's no good.
Yeah.
But this was, this is Max and Robin that are making all these decisions on this, perhaps. And I said they should be able to see that it's no good.
Because they're not stupid.
No, so I said, so just do this one race. So he said, I should not be doing this race. I should not be doing it. I said, yeah, right, just this one race, just try. So in the race, there's a blow up. He's sliding backwards. It's a quick engine on the straight, but only at the end of the straight. But everywhere else it's useless. So the engine blows up. And I said to him, did you do a clutch job on it, Ronnie? And he said, no need. Always remember, the other mechanic with me, John Redgrave, he goes and has a look at the engine and pulls a gudgeon pin out from the V. So look at this gudgeon pin. So, okay, so that's written off. The funny thing was, the engine turned up probably 3 races later, and all the centre of the V had been filled with aerolite. That was their repair. So
really,
that's the sort of
super glue
organisation we were dealing with.
Yeah.
And but luckily after that, actually Ronnie never had to use it again, because in the Silverstone race he went into the bank at Beckett's in a big way.
Right.
And ended up in hospital. And so that was with the Alpha engine again. But we get back to the pits, or bring the car back, and of course he says, we haven't spoken to Ronnie, but he's in hospital in Northampton and he wants to talk to me anyway. But I had a look at the engine, and there was a linkage off the metering unit on the engine, and so I just figured out what had happened. He'd have it hard open up to Beckett's, and he'd be turning to the right,
Yeah.
and then the linkage would actually swing out because the pin's missing on the bottom. Then when he lifts it off, it sticks on the side of the front slide, see?
Right.
So it just isn't coming, so
No.
everything's held open.
Yeah.
And so I figured that out. So I go up to Northampton Hospital and speak to him. He said, I think what happened, this is what happened. Oh, that's okay. Then, you know, as long as he knew what happened, he'd be okay.
Mm.
It wasn't as if it's a mystery gonna happen again.
Yes, quite. Yeah.
That was with the Alpha engine, but after Rickard, I don't think we used the Alpha engine again. But we certainly practiced at Hockenheim with the Ford engine, had some problems. So immediately they went to the Alpha engine,
Right.
engine car. And luckily on race morning, on warm-up, he had problems with the Alpha engine. So we quickly repaired the Ford engine. I did some work on the scavenge pumps on that and got that working. And we had that out. The Alpha mechanics were racing sort of against us to try and get out before we got our car. And he finished in the,
in the points again.
in the points there. Well, that wasn't a points race, but he sort of finished second or third or something.
Yeah.
See? So all the races that we ran without the influence of the Alpha engine, he did well in it.
Yeah.
Actually, Monaco, he did extremely well there. That was he finished second there, didn't he?
Yes, that's right.
Brilliant race, I think, by Ronnie.
Mm.
Actually, against odds, because he had to overtake his cars also there.
We know it's like that.
Yeah.
Monaco.
So you know, so those days were excellent with Ronnie, and he was such a nice, you know, sort of guy. Anyway, he was just just one of us.
Yeah.
We were going testing at actually Goodwood once, and Ronnie used to be one of the jobs he had in real life was erecting and dismantling these cranes on buildings.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And he told me a couple of funny stories about how his boss had said to him, take the Volvo up and there's this big crane on this building. He said dismantle it. So Ronnie gets there and they think, him and his mate think they can do the job a lot faster if they take it in bigger pieces.
Right.
And there's a blizzard coming. It's in Sweden. So they do this, and in the end he said, we're in big trouble. He said, we've got the big pieces hanging on the side down the side of the building when the blizzard hits.
Yeah.
And he said, the police are there and everything. So that was one. And another one, they get this big Volvo truck and they load it up because the boss, he said, it'll all go on one load. He said, we drive off, bang, a spring goes on the trailer. Oh, we've got to carry on. Bang, another one goes. They find out they've got twice the load on that this thing's capable of.
Yeah.
And another time there, we're on the way testing to Goodwood, and he's talking about a mate of his. They were taking the cable out of the pulley, and Ronnie's up on the boom. It's hooked up or something. He released it, and the guy in the bottom pulls it, and the cable comes out, and he steps backward off the building. And Ronnie talks about this, and it made me ill. I thought, we're going testing today, I don't need this sort of thing. But for Ronnie, it was just another, matter of sort of fact,
Yeah.
part of his life. And he was extremely honest, I thought, Ronnie, with everything he did.
Yeah.
He was a nice, honest, sort of person.
Well, you've heard the stories at the end of Lotus. He was going to sign, or he had signed for McLaren for the next year.
Oh, yeah.
Then he had his accident. And then apparently people knew about it towards the end of that season with Andretti. And people were saying to him, why don't you're leaving, why don't you go for it, you should overtake him and win. And he said, no, I've given my word, I've shook hands on it at the start of the year that Mario's number one, and I won't go for it against him.
Yes.
Which is nice, isn't it?
That would be Ronnie, yeah. He was extremely nice.
And in the heat of the moment, or he could have just gone,
Yeah,
I'll do it anyway.
Yeah.
But he never did.
He never did, no. And so, there's always the argument that Mario puts up that that he beat Ronnie, but I think on occasions I'd say Ronnie was right.
Could have won.
him.
Yes, that's right. They finished 1-2 a lot, didn't they?
Yeah. I'd like to think that Ronnie could have beaten him anyway, and I think he was certainly capable. He had a lot of ability.
I think he was capable of doing it as well.
Yeah.